All right, let me spend a few minutes on foreign policy here because Congress, Republicans really bucking the president's version of foreign policy. And let me start with Libya. The fight over whether the president needs specific authority from Congress to wage this effort. And the big question, are there actually hostilities involved? The White House issued a report saying U.S. operations do not involve sustained fighting or active exchanges of fire with hostile forces, nor do they involve U.S. ground troops. Are there hostilities? House Speaker Boehner said, come on, this is ridiculous.
We're part of an effort to drop bombs on Ghadaffi's compounds. I don't know. It doesn't pass a straight face test, in my view, that we're not in the midst of hostilities.
So why shouldn't there be specific approval from Congress to wage whatever we're waging there, Senator? Senator Graham, I'll start with you.
Talking to me, David?
Yeah.
Well, one, I would take the course that conservatives have taken for the last 30 years. The War Powers Act is unconstitutional, not worth the paper it's written on. It requires congressional approval before the commander-in-chief can commit troops after a certain period of time, and it would allow troops to be withdrawn based on the passage of a concurrent resolution never presented to the president. So I think it's an infringement on the power of the commander-in-chief. The president's done a lousy job of communicating and managing our involvement in Libya, but I will be no part of an effort to defund Libya or to try to cut off our efforts to bring Ghadaffi down. If we fail against Ghadaffi, that's the end of NATO. Egypt's going to be overrun, and the mad dog of the Mideast, Ronald Reagan called Ghadaffi. If he survives this, you're going to have double the price of oil that you have today because he will take the whole region and put it into chaos, and I won't be any part of that. So from my Republican point of view, the president needs to step up his game with Libya, but Congress should sort of shut up and not empower Ghadaffi, because he wrote a letter to the congressional leadership basically thanking them for their involvement in trying to end this conflict.
Well, it's interesting, Senator Durbin, you two are on opposite sides of this. You do think the president should get specific authority from Congress to do this. What about the view that you're sort of giving some aid and comfort here to Republicans who simply just want to buck the president on any foreign policy goal? Your own leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, said, no, we don't need a war powers approval resolution here. Yet you disagree.
I respect Harry Reid very much, and certainly the president, as you know, but I respectfully disagree. It's true, the War Powers Act is an infringement on the president's power as commander-in-chief. So is the Constitution, which makes it clear the American people make decisions about going to war through members of Congress. The president's doing the right thing. What we have here, this would-be butcher of Benghazi, Ghadaffi needs to be stopped so he doesn't kill innocent people. The president brought together the Arab League, the United Nations, and NATO and said we're going to play a supportive role, no ground troops. We're going to have a limited duration conflict to stop Ghadaffi. That was the right thing. But I think that the War Powers Act and Constitution make it clear that hostilities by remote control are still hostilities. We are killing with drones what we would otherwise be killing with fighter planes. And we are engaged in hostilities in Libya. What we should do is act on a timely basis to pass congressional authorization under the War Powers Act. I reject the Republican approach, which has been suggested by Speaker Boehner and others, to cut off the troops. It would give solace to Ghadaffi. It would undermine the people who are resisting him in that nation. And I agree completely with Lindsey Graham. It would call into question the future of NATO.
Well, first of all, we don't have any troops over there. And Senator Graham, the reality is, what are we doing? What is the end game? I mean, you talk about it would be the end of NATO. Well, what NATO has done for several months hasn't worked. So, I mean, there is this criticism of you and others, which is that the advocacy for sort of perpetual war when we don't seem to have a plan.
Well, we do. We had an opportunity to end this very quickly. The day you took American air power off the table, NATO became a weakened organization. But we are making progress. Ghadaffi is on his last leg. The rebels are getting stronger. They've taken the fight to Tripoli. I said about 4 weeks ago, go after Ghadaffi's inner circle, break their will. We're pounding Tripoli. But the big mistake was to take American air power off the table. What I would like to see is for America to rejoin NATO when it comes to an aerial bombardment. We don't need ground troops. And if you don't think Ghadaffi surviving affects American national security interest, we're just on different planets. If this guy survives, it's the end of NATO. Our standing in the world goes down. Egypt gets overrun by refugees. And the mad dog of the Mideast, Ghadaffi, is out of his cage, and you're going to see oil prices double.
All right,
you will see Iran recalculating.